August 7th, 1944. Neho, France. 12th Army Group Headquarters. General Omar Bradley is reviewing daily situation reports with his intelligence officer, Colonel Benjamin Monk Dixon. It's early morning. Coffee steams on the desk. Maps spread across the table show Patton's Third Army positions south of the Normandy breakout. The front is moving fast. Everything seems routine. Then Dixon sets down a folder marked Classified Eyes Only. His expression is troubled. Bradley looks up from the maps. "What is it, Monk?" Dixon doesn't answer immediately. He opens the folder and slides a single sheet across the desk. Bradley reads it once, then again. His face goes pale. "Monk, this says the Germans intercepted an American general 150 miles behind their lines near Chartres. Please tell me this is a German intelligence mistake." Dixon shakes his head slowly. "Sir, I've correlated the dates with Third Army operational reports. It's Patton. He's been doing this for weeks, without authorization, without security, without telling anyone. If you want to understand how one general's unauthorized operations nearly cost the Allies their most effective commander and could have changed the entire war, hit that subscribe button right now and join the WW2 elite community. We bring you the untold stories that reveal the real decisions behind the history books. Drop a like and let me know in the comments what you think about Patton's methods. Now let's see exactly what happened when Bradley discovered his army commander had been operating deep behind enemy lines like a commando. Bradley stands and walks to the large situation map on the wall. His finger traces a line from the current front to Chartres, 150 miles through German-occupied territory. Past 3 Wehrmacht Army Corps, through towns still under enemy control. "Walk me through this again," Bradley says. His voice is controlled but tight, slowly. "Because I need to understand how my army commander has been operating 150 miles behind enemy lines without anyone knowing." Dixon spreads additional documents across the desk. Intelligence intercepts, reconnaissance reports, photographic evidence from Allied aircraft. "Sir, we've pieced it together from multiple sources. German communications intercepts from late July mention an American officer gathering intelligence near their supply depots south of Paris. At the time, we thought it was referring to OSS operatives or special forces. Then, our own reconnaissance units started reporting a suspicious jeep operating in areas we thought were German-held. The reports were vague. No one could identify who was in the vehicle. And then I cross-referenced those reports with Third Army's command logs. General Patton's position reports for the past 3 weeks have been deliberately vague, conducting forward reconnaissance, visiting 12 Corps positions. But when I checked with 12 Corps, they said he'd never arrived at several of those scheduled visits." Bradley stares at the map. Chartres, Le Mans, Alençon, all behind what were then enemy lines. "You're telling me George has been driving around occupied France in a jeep?" "Yes, sir. And we have photographic confirmation." Dixon produces an aerial reconnaissance photo. A jeep on a road near Le Mans. The date stamp reads July 28. "That's him. Our photo interpreters didn't recognize him at first because he wasn't wearing rank insignia. But that's General Patton's jeep. And that's 120 miles behind what was the front line on that date." Bradley picks up the photo, studies it, sets it down carefully. "That's impossible. George commands 250,000 men. He can't just disappear into German territory like he's some kind of spy." "Apparently, sir, he can. And he has been. For at least 3 weeks. The room falls silent. Outside, staff officers move through the headquarters building. Typewriters clack, radios crackle, the normal sounds of command. But in this office, Omar Bradley is confronting something he didn't think was possible. His most aggressive army commander, the general who's been achieving the fastest advances in the entire European theater, has been operating behind enemy lines personally, gathering intelligence, taking risks that could lose the Allies their most. And Bradley hadn't heard the worst part yet. The part about what Patton was doing behind enemy lines, and who he'd been meeting with in occupied France. According to official Third Army after-action reports, archived at the National Archives, the period between July 15th and August 5th, 1944, shows unusual gaps in General Patton's position logs. During this 3-week window, Patton conducted at least 7 separate unauthorized reconnaissance missions behind German lines. The distances ranged from 80 miles to 150 miles beyond Third Army's forward positions. He traveled in unmarked jeeps with minimal escort, sometimes just his driver, Sergeant John Mims, and 1 aide. He wore no rank insignia, carried false identification papers prepared by Third Army intelligence, and gathered first-hand intelligence on German troop movements, supply routes, defensive positions, and morale. His own staff coordinated the deception. Major General Hugh Gaffey, Third Army's Chief of Staff, filed position reports that were technically accurate but deliberately misleading. When Schaeff asked for Patton's location, they received coordinates of Third Army command posts, but Patton wasn't actually there. He was 100 miles away, behind enemy lines. Bradley walks back to his desk, sits down heavily, picks up the secure telephone. "Get me Third Army headquarters, General Patton, now." It takes 6 minutes to establish the connection. When Patton's voice comes through, it's casual, confident. "Good morning. What can I do for you?" Bradley's voice is controlled, too controlled. "George, I need you to explain something to me. My intelligence chief just showed me reports that you've been conducting personal reconnaissance 150 miles behind German lines. Tell me he's wrong." There's a brief pause on the line. Then Patton's voice, still confident, but with a hint of amusement. "Well, Brad, technically it was only 147 miles at the furthest point. I measured it on the map." "That's not funny, George." "I wasn't trying to be funny. I was being accurate." Bradley's jaw tightens. "You're an army commander. You don't conduct reconnaissance. You command from headquarters, with radios, and staff officers, and security protocols that exist for it. How am I supposed to know where the Germans actually are if I don't see it myself?" Patton's voice shifts, becomes more serious. "Your intelligence reports tell me German positions from aerial reconnaissance and prisoner interrogations. That's fine. But I wanted to see their actual disposition, their morale, their supply situation, the condition of their equipment. You can't get that from a headquarters tent looking at maps and reading reports. You could have been captured." Bradley's voice rises despite his attempt to stay calm. "Do you understand what happens if the Germans capture a 3-star American general? Do you understand the intelligence value, the propaganda value? Do you have any idea what you know that the Germans would love to extract from you? But they didn't capture me. I got back every time, with actionable intelligence that Third Army used to plan our breakout operations." "That's not the point." "That's exactly the point, Brad. Result: we used the intelligence I gathered to execute the most successful offensive operation of this campaign. We advanced 60 miles in 4 days. We cut off German retreat routes. We destroyed enemy formations before they could withdraw to prepared positions. How do you think we did that? Lucky guesses." Bradley takes a breath, forces himself to speak more calmly. "George, I've known you for 20 years, since we were both instructors at Fort Benning. You're brilliant. You're the most aggressive field commander in this army, but this crosses a line I didn't think even you would cross. You could have been killed. You could have been captured. You could have compromised the entire Allied strategy if the Germans had gotten their hands on you and started asking questions." Patton's response is cold, clipped. "I could have also lost the war, sitting in headquarters, looking at maps and trusting second-hand intelligence. I did what needed to be done." "Sir." The line goes silent. Then a click. Patton hung up. Bradley sets down the receiver slowly. Dixon is still standing by the map waiting. "Get me General Eisenhower," Bradley says quietly. "This goes up the chain, now." But Bradley's problems are just beginning, because the unauthorized reconnaissance missions are just the surface. When he orders a complete review of Third Army's command logs and intelligence reports, what he discovers is systematic deception that goes far deeper than anyone suspected. Major General Hugh Gaffey, Patton's Chief of Staff, has been coordinating an elaborate cover story for weeks. Every time Schaeff or 12th Army Group requested Patton's position, they received coordinates that were technically accurate: a 3rd Army command post, a forward headquarters location, a corps command position. But Patton wasn't actually at those locations. The staff would file the position report, then Patton would slip away with minimal escort, drive into German-held territory, conduct his reconnaissance, and return hours or sometimes days later. The position reports continued showing him at authorized locations the entire time. When Bradley confronts Gaffey by secure phone on August 7th, the Chief of Staff is defensive but unapologetic. "Sir, General Patton felt that personal observation was essential to effective command. He wanted to see the enemy dispositions firsthand, verify intelligence reports, assess terrain and German defensive preparations personally, and you facilitated this," Bradley says. "It's not a question. I coordinated logistics and security to the extent General Patton would allow." "Yes, sir." He insisted on minimal escort to avoid detection. He wore no rank insignia. He carried false papers identifying him as a lieutenant colonel on liaison duty, and he always returned with intelligence that proved valuable to our operations. Gaffy, you understand this is a court-martial offense. Falsifying position reports for a commanding general, facilitating unauthorized operations behind enemy lines, concealing information from higher command. There's a pause. Then Gaffy's voice, quiet but firm. Sir, Third Army has advanced further and faster than any other Allied army in this theater. We've achieved every objective ahead of schedule. We've liberated more territory and captured more enemy soldiers than anyone predicted. General Patton's methods may be unconventional, but they work. That's all I can say, sir. The call ends. Bradley sits at his desk, staring at the maps, the intelligence reports, the photographs. Everything confirms what he didn't want to believe. George Patton has been operating like a commando scout instead of an army commander, and his entire staff has been covering for him. The secure line, it's Eisenhower, and he's not happy. According to Harry Butcher's diary, Eisenhower's naval aide who kept detailed daily notes, the Supreme Commander's reaction to Bradley's report was explosive. Butcher wrote, "The boss went white when Brad told him about George's reconnaissance missions, then red. I've never seen him that angry. He demanded to speak with Patton immediately. When Third Army said George was conducting forward operations and couldn't come to the phone, Ike slammed his hand on the desk and ordered Brad to fly to Third Army headquarters personally and bring George back to reality before he starts World War III by himself." But even Eisenhower doesn't know the full story yet, because on August 9th, Bradley discovers something that makes the unauthorized reconnaissance look almost responsible by comparison. Patton hasn't just been observing German positions. He's been coordinating with French resistance fighters behind enemy lines, meeting with local resistance leaders, gathering human intelligence from partisan networks, and, most problematic, making promises of American support for resistance operations. The discovery comes from an intercepted radio transmission from a Free French resistance cell near Chartres. The message, decoded by Allied intelligence, references the American general who met with resistance leaders on August 2nd and promised tactical air support for an operation against a German supply depot. Bradley is in his office when the decoded message arrives. He reads it 3 times, then calls his operations officer. "Get me everything we have on Free French resistance operations in the Chartres sector. Everything. And find out if Third Army coordinated any air support missions in that area in early August." The answer comes back within 2 hours. Yes, Third Army requested tactical air support for a Partisa resistance operation near Chartres on August 3rd. The request came through proper channels and was approved. What wasn't in the request, that Patton had personally met with the resistance leaders and coordinated the operation without authorization from S. Chafe, without coordination with Allied intelligence services, and without anyone knowing he was behind enemy lines at the time. Bradley picks up the phone. This time, he doesn't go through channels. He calls Third Army headquarters directly and demands to speak with whoever is actually in charge, since Patton is apparently never where he's supposed to be. Colonel Halley Maddox, Third Army's G3 operations officer, takes the call. "Colonel, this is General Bradley. Where is General Patton right now? And I want his actual location, not the official position report." There's a hesitation. Then, "Sir, General Patton is conducting forward reconnaissance with 12 Corps in preparation for the advance toward the Seine. Is he at 12 Corps headquarters?" Another hesitation. "He's forward of 12 Corps headquarters, sir." "How far forward?" "I don't have exact coordinates, sir." Bradley's voice goes cold. "Colonel, I'm going to ask you one more time. Where is General Patton?" "Sir, his last radio transmission was 3 hours ago from coordinates approximately 40 miles southeast of Le Mans. He said he was assessing German withdrawal routes." Bradley looks at his map. 40 miles southeast of Le Mans. That's not forward reconnaissance. That's behind enemy lines again. When is he expected back? "He didn't provide an estimated return time, sir." Bradley hangs up, makes a decision. He's going to Third Army headquarters personally, and he's going to be there when Patton returns from wherever he actually is. And they're going to have a conversation that will settle this once and for all. But the reconnaissance missions aren't even the most dangerous thing Patton has been doing, because Bradley still doesn't know about the French resistance meetings, or what Patton has been promising partisan leaders, or the diplomatic nightmare that's brewing from a theater commander conducting independent foreign policy in occupied territory. By August 10th, 3 separate Allied commands are demanding answers. The British Second Army wants to know why American forces are coordinating with resistance groups in areas that might fall under British operational zones. The Free French Command in London wants to know who authorized direct American coordination with resistance networks without consulting them. And Chef Intelligence wants to know why no one knew a 3-star general was conducting independent operations behind enemy lines. All of those questions lead back to one person, George S. Patton, who at this moment is somewhere in German-occupied France, doing exactly what everyone is now trying to stop him from doing. August 10th, 1944. 3rd Army Headquarters near Le Mans. Bradley arrives by light aircraft. He's told Patton is expecting him for an operational briefing on the advance toward Paris. But when Bradley walks into the headquarters complex, Patton isn't there. Major General Gaffey meets him at the entrance. His expression is carefully neutral. General Bradley, welcome to 3rd Army. General Patton asks, he's been delayed at 12 Corps but should return within the hour. Where is he really, Gaffey? I flew 80 miles to have this conversation in person. Where is General Patton, actually? Gaffey's neutral expression cracks slightly. Sir, he left headquarters at 0500 this morning, direction southeast, toward Nogent-le-Rotrou and Chartres. He wanted to personally assess German withdrawal patterns before 12 Corps begins the advance. Ease behind enemy lines. Again, sir, the front is moving very rapidly. What was enemy territory yesterday is often liberated by this afternoon. General Patton is conducting aggressive reconnaissance to stay ahead of the German withdrawal. That's one way to phrase it. Bradley walks to the operations map, studies the positions. Nogent-le-Rotrou is 60 miles southeast. Chartres is 90 miles, both deep in territory that's officially still contested. When did you last have communication with him? 3 hours ago, sir. He reported reaching Nogent-le-Rotrou and planned to continue toward Chartres to verify intelligence reports of German supply depot evacuations. Bradley turns to face Gaffey directly. And you don't see a problem with an army commander operating 90 miles beyond his forward units, with minimal security in territory where German forces are still active. Gaffey meets his eyes. Sir, General Patton has conducted 7 similar reconnaissance missions over the past 3 weeks. He's returned from each one with intelligence that directly contributed to 3rd Army's operational success. He understands the risks. He judges them acceptable given the intelligence. That's not his decision to make. That's my decision, and General Eisenhower's decision, not his. Before Gaffey can respond, there's a commotion outside. The sound of a vehicle arriving. Voices. Then the distinctive sound of George Patton's voice, loud and energized, talking to someone about terrain and supply routes. Bradley walks to the entrance, steps outside into the courtyard, and there's Patton, climbing out of a dusty Jeep, uniform covered in road dust, grinning like he's just returned from a successful hunting trip. He's carrying a leather map case that clearly didn't come from American Supply. Patton sees Bradley and his grin widens. Brad, perfect timing. You have to see what I found. German dispositions for the entire Chartres-Orléans sector. Complete troop strengths, supply depot locations, withdrawal routes. This is going to cut weeks off our advance. Bradley doesn't move, doesn't smile. His voice is flat. George, inside, now, alone. Patton's grin fades slightly. He reads Bradley's expression and his tone changes. All right, let's talk. They walk into Patton's command tent. Bradley closes the flap behind them. For a moment, neither man speaks. Then Bradley points to a chair. Sit down, George. We're going to talk, and you're going to listen. Patton starts to object, holding up the captured map case. Brad, before you say anything, look at this intelligence. This is exactly what we need to. I don't care about the intelligence. Bradley's voice cuts through. I care that you've been operating 150 miles behind enemy lines for weeks without authorization. I care that you've been coordinating with French resistance without clearance from Chef or Free French Command. I care that you've been filing false position reports through your staff. I care that I have 3 different Allied commands demanding explanations I can't provide because I don't know what my own army commander has been doing. And I care that right now, this moment, I have orders from General Eisenhower to relieve you of command if I determine you're putting 3rd Army and Allied operations at unacceptable risk. The tent goes silent. Patton sets down the map case slowly, sits in the chair. His expression is serious now, calculating. Are you going to relieve me? Bradley doesn't answer immediately. He walks to Patton's field desk. looks at the maps spread across it, the intelligence reports, the operational orders. All evidence of Third Army's remarkable success. Fastest most objectives achieved ahead of schedule. Highest enemy casualty. I should, Bradley finally says. You know I should. What you've been doing violates every principle of command we have. Every security protocol. Every regulation in the book. But you're not going to. It's not a question from Patton. It's a statement. Why shouldn't I? Give me one good reason why I shouldn't relieve you right now and turn Third Army over to Mantonetti or someone else who'll actually follow orders. Patton leans forward. Because Third Army is advancing faster than any other Allied army in Europe. Because we're achieving objectives everyone said were impossible. Because we're destroying German formations before they can establish defensive positions. Because what I'm doing, even if it's unauthorized, even if it violates regulations, is working, and you know it. That's not the point. That's exactly the point. Patton's voice rises to match Bradley's. We're here to win a war, not follow regulations. I went behind enemy lines because I needed to see what the Germans were actually doing, not what intelligence reports said they might be doing. I coordinated with French resistance because they had information and capabilities we needed, and waiting for proper channels would have meant missing opportunities. I filed vague position reports because if I'd told everyone exactly where I was going, someone would have stopped me, and then we wouldn't have the intelligence that's about to cut the German 7th Army off from retreat. Bradley walks closer, stands directly in front of Patton. When he speaks, his voice is quieter but carries more weight than when he was shouting. George, you could have been killed. One broken down jeep. One German checkpoint you didn't see. One patrol that got lucky. And Third Army loses the one commander who you could have been captured. And the Germans would have had a 3-star American general who knows every Allied plan, every objective, every operational timeline. You could have compromised the entire campaign. Do you understand that? Do you understand what you risked? I understand the risks, I accept them, and we're winning because of it. Bradley takes a breath. He's been building to this moment since August 7th, when Dixon put that classified folder on his desk. Everything comes down to what he says next, how he handles this, whether he can control George Patton, or whether Patton is simply uncontrollable. According to Martin Blumenson's The Patton Papers, what Bradley said next became legendary among Third Army staff officers. Some of them were outside the tent, close enough to hear through the canvas. They spread the words throughout the command within hours. Bradley's voice is controlled now, measured, but every word carries weight. George, you're the best battlefield commander I've ever seen. I've never questioned that. Not in North Africa, not in Sicily, not here in France. You have an instinct for terrain, for enemy weaknesses, for timing that I've never seen in anyone else. You're the biggest reason Third Army is succeeding, and you're the biggest headache I've ever had. He pauses. Make sure Patton is listening, really listening. You break every rule, you ignore every protocol, you put yourself at insane risk. You make my life impossible with your stunts and your insubordination and your complete disregard for any authority above you. And the absolute hell of it is, you're right. Your personal reconnaissance gave us intelligence that saved lives. That shortened this campaign. That put us weeks ahead of where we'd be if you were sitting in headquarters looking at second-hand reports. Patton starts to respond. Bradley holds up a hand. But if you ever do this again, if you ever go behind enemy lines without authorization again, I will relieve you. I don't care how successful you are. I don't care how much General Eisenhower needs Third Army. I don't care if you're winning the war single-handedly. You're too valuable to lose to a German patrol because you can't follow orders. You're too important to risk on personal reconnaissance missions that any captain could conduct. Do you understand me? Patton meets his eyes. I understand but Brad, I can't command from the rear. I can't win battles by looking. I need to see the enemy. See the terrain. See what my soldiers are facing. That's how I fight. That's how Third Army wins. Then find a way to do it that doesn't involve operating 150 miles behind enemy lines like you're a commando scout instead of an army commander. Because I'm not having this conversation again. Next time, you're relieved. I promise you that. The two men stand facing each other. 20 years of friendship and professional respect balanced against command authority and regulations that exist for reasons both men understand. Finally, Patton nods slightly. All right, no more unauthorized operations behind enemy lines. You have good. Now show me that intelligence you're so proud of, and it better be worth everything you just put me through. Patton's grin returned. He opens the captured German map case and spreads documents across his field desk. Complete German dispositions for the Chartres-Orléans sector. Bradley studies them, and despite his anger, he can't help but recognize the value. This intelligence will allow Third Army to cut off retreating German forces completely, will save Allied lives, will shorten the campaign, which makes the entire situation even more impossible. Because Patton was right about the results, he was also completely wrong about the methods, and Bradley has to live with that paradox. This wasn't just about reconnaissance missions. This was about the fundamental tension in wartime leadership. How much autonomy do you give brilliant but reckless commanders? How do you balance their effectiveness against the risks they take? Bradley's quote to Patton, threatening relief while acknowledging his value, captured that impossible balance perfectly. You can't let generals operate independently 150 miles behind enemy lines, but you also can't chain them to headquarters when their instincts and personal observations win battles and save lives. The irony haunted Bradley afterward. Patton's reconnaissance missions provided intelligence that Third Army used to execute some of their most successful operations. The information shortened the campaign, saved Allied casualties, contributed directly to the liberation of Paris weeks ahead of schedule. But if Patton had been captured or killed on any of those missions, the consequences would have been devastating. A 3-star American general in German hands, with knowledge of all Allied plans, timing of operations, coordination with resistance movements, intelligence capabilities and limitations. One wrong turn, one mechanical failure, one alert German patrol, and everything could have changed. Patton never conducted another unauthorized, not because he agreed with Bradley's reasoning, but because Third Army advanced so rapidly after mid-August that there weren't really enemy lines anymore. The German forces in France were in full retreat. By August 25th, Paris was liberated. By September, Third Army had crossed into Germany itself. The intelligence Patton gathered during his unauthorized missions contributed to Third Army's capture of over 90,000 German prisoners in August and September 1944. His first-hand observations of German withdrawal routes allowed Third Army to position forces that cut off entire enemy formations. The map case he brought back from his final unauthorized mission behind German lines contained information that Third Army used to plan operations for the next month. But years later, when Bradley wrote his memoir, A Soldier's Story, he reflected on August 1944 with mixed feelings. He wrote, Patton's reconnaissance missions behind enemy lines were militarily effective and absolutely unacceptable. They provided Third Army with intelligence that proved invaluable to our operations. They also risked losing the one general who could command Third Army with the aggression and instinct we needed. I threatened to relieve him because I had to establish some limit to his autonomy, some boundary he wouldn't cross. But truthfully, part of me understood why he did it. George Patton couldn't command from the rear any more than he could stop breathing. He needed to see the enemy himself, judge their strength and dispositions personally. I just had to make sure he stayed alive long enough to win the war. The captured German intelligence officer in September 1944 revealed something that sent chills through Allied command when they learned about it. German forces in France had known about the American general operating behind their lines. They'd assigned special detachment units specifically to capture him. They'd come within 15 miles of Patton's position on at least 3 separate occasions in early August. The Germans didn't know it was Patton specifically, just that it was a high-ranking American officer conducting reconnaissance in areas he shouldn't be. They'd set up ambush points along likely routes, increased patrols in areas where the mystery officer had been spotted, offered rewards to informants who could provide information. On August 3rd, near Chartres, a German patrol came within 2 miles of the farm where Patton was meeting with French resistance leaders. The patrol was searching for the American officer their intelligence reported in the area. They never found him. Patton and his minimal escort left the farm 30 minutes before the Germans arrived. One German checkpoint Patton didn't know about. One informant who recognized him despite the lack of rank insignia. One patrol getting lucky at the wrong moment. And the American general with knowledge of all Allied operations in Europe would have been in German hands. That's what Bradley understood. On August 10th, when he confronted Patton at Third Army headquarters. That's what his quote meant. Patton was brilliant, essential, the most effective battlefield commander in the European theater, and he was one captured American general away from potentially compromising Allied operations across Europe. George Patton's unauthorized reconnaissance missions weren't just reckless command decisions, they were calculated risks that could have changed the entire trajectory of World War II. The intelligence they produced helped win battles and saved lives. The risk they created could have lost the war. Bradley had to live with that impossible balance. Had to let Patton be Patton enough to be effective. Had to control Patton enough to keep him alive. Had to threaten relief seriously enough that Patton would listen while knowing he probably couldn't actually follow through on the threat, because Third Army needed Patton too much. That's leadership in wartime. That's command at the highest levels. Not following regulations in a textbook, but balancing brilliant recklessness against catastrophic risk. And somehow, impossibly, making it work. If this story revealed something about command and risk you've never considered before, do me a favor right now. Subscribe to WW2 Elite, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling me what you think. Was Bradley right to let Patton continue, or should he have relieved him on the spot? We're building a community that digs into the impossible decisions that shaped history, the choices that don't have easy answers, the moments when leaders had to balance effectiveness against catastrophic risk. And I'll see you in the next one.